Hey boys and girls, I'm going to show you how to tie on your first piece of yarn for your weave. You have your loom all set, and I'm going to take my yarn out of my package here. And when you get your yarn, you always want to very kind of carefully let it gently fall out. Otherwise it can get pretty tangled. And if you notice, I've got the yarn here tied with a little knot. That is going to be helpful to keep our yarn from getting tangled. So I'm going to hold this kind of right here where the knot is, and this first piece that I want to tie on is going to be the very first thing at the bottom here. So it doesn't matter what color. I think I'm going to take red. So if I take red, I'm going to take it from the top here. You don't want to take it from the loose ends. You want to take it from the loop. You hang on to the knot here while you've got your little loop, and then you just pull it out. And then it doesn't make the rest of this tangle, which is really nice because you don't want to spend time unknotting all your yarn. So I'm going to put this off to the side, and then I'm going to pick either corner. Does not matter which one, but it is handy. Like right here is where I started. So if I actually tied on at this spot on the other side, so this side, it'll be really easy to take this off the loom when I'm finished with the whole weave. So I'm going to take my first warp thread, first piece of warp, and slide my yarn underneath. I've got a short tail and I've got a really long tail. And you're basically going to make a simple single knot, just like you would for a tennis shoe. And I'm just going to crisscross that, put that end through the loop, and it should look like a pretzel. Give it a tie. If you want to double knot it, you can do that. If you know how to tie a shoe, you can go from top and under and through, or over and through the bottom. There we go. Then if you're wanting to trim this, that's fine, but I always say leave a little bit of space. If you trim it right at the knot will probably undo. So just a little snip. Leave a little bit of a tail there. Then to get started with weaving, you're going to take your yarn. You can either grab your needle, and if you're good at putting it through the needle, you can just put it through. And these needles are pretty big, so you should probably have no problem. But another good method is to take a little piece of paper, fold it, make sure it can go through your needle, fold it around your yarn, and then zip this through. And then this usually is pretty handy to get things threaded. Some people like to knot it on here so that it doesn't pull out from the needle. If you want to, you can give it, I just would do a single knot and kind of loose. All right. So now you're ready to start weaving. So I'm going to bring this up a little closer. When you get started, this knot here can be over or under. It really does not matter which. I tend to call it over. So my next one, I'm going to go under, then over, then under, then over, under, or over, under, and you're going to do that all the way across. And it's a good idea to just the first time, especially if this is new to you, leave your needle in for a second if you're doing the short loom, and double check. So you're over, under, and go all the way across to make sure that every other one looks right. That looks good. And then you want to pull this through. When you pull it through, you don't want to pull too tight when you start getting to this point. This is when you want to kind of let that arc like this. This is when you grab yourself a plastic fork, if you can, if you have one handy, and you pull it down. And you want to get it really close to the bottom there. And if it looks a little bumpy, or if you want to straighten it a little bit, pull it a little bit tighter, you can. But what you're trying to protect are your warp. You want your warp to be perfectly straight. And mine is perfectly straight, so I'm not worried about it. Now I'm going to go back this direction. So I just ended here on my right side, so I'm going to go back towards the left. When I do that, you need to always look. I still do, even when I'm weaving a bigger weave. I make sure what is the last thing I did. So the last thing I did is I laid this yarn on top of, so this is over. So now I'm going back this direction, under. So under, over, under, over. You're just going to do that as your routine on the way back. And again, it's a good idea to look at it, see if it's the opposite of what you had the last time. So over, so I'm under, and just kind of do a double check and make sure. And then if you're right, you go ahead and you pull it through, and you'll get the hang of this pretty quick. Now this is when it gets tricky. It's really easy to want to do this, to pull it and go like this. Now suddenly look at my warp. Now it's all the way pulled over there. That's why you don't want to pull your yarn through. You want to let that have a little bit of an arc. It's much easier to lead, and you won't notice it if you have a little bubble here. You're better to have a bubble on your sides than to have it pulled really tight. If you want to close that space in a little bit, you can do it carefully, but then you want to make sure your warps are all kind of even. And they might move a little bit throughout, but it's your sides. You want to make sure that they don't hourglass in. Then I look here, I'm under here on this side. You can see that the black yarn is on top. My warp is on top. So I'm going to go over on the way back. Over, under, and then I'm just going to keep going all the way across. Now some people, like if you want to do it just this way, this is great. Some people want to learn how to use a shed stick. And again, I'm trying to make sure I've arced this. I've left some space. Let me first do this. I'm going to pull it down with my fork. Now, if you want to use a shed stick on a short loom like this one, you can use a pencil. If you want to, if you're doing the wider loom, you want to use maybe a stick. Now, I'm a fast weaver. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to weave fast this direction. So I'm right here, I'm over, so I'm going to go under and just weave this one the regular way all the way across. I'm going to give my little arc. Slow down my pulling when I get to about here. Leave that space there. Pull this down. If you want to close that in a little bit, I can pull it just a little, but I do not want to pull too tight. So now, if I want to use the shed stick, I'm going to weave this pencil like I'm weaving the yarn. And I'm going to look and see what I'm doing here, because I'm a slower weaver going left to right since I'm right-handed. I'm not left-handed. Now, if you're left-handed, you probably want to do your shed stick going the opposite direction I am, because it'll save you some time. So right here, if you notice, I'm under, so I want to be over. So I'm going to do the pencil like it's my needle. Let's see. Oops, this pencil's a little, it's got a little sharp spot on it, but it'll work. All the way across. So it's really important this is right, because if this isn't right, it's going to throw you off in the future. So I'm double checking. So my red is under, so I needed this to be over. So this looks right, every other one. See how that lifts the yarn up like that? Now what I can do is I slide it down, I take my needle and I make sure that I'm on top of all the yarn that's pushed against the loom, and it's underneath the ones that are being lifted. And I just pull this across. Look how fast that is to weave that section. And then again, I didn't pull. I'm just gonna beat this down is what it's called when you're using the fork. I'm gonna push this up a little bit so it's easier to weave, because I do have to do the weaving the regular way going back. So I'm gonna do my weave. And it does feel like you're pushing against the yarn a little bit when you do that. I'm gonna pull this across. And then I can pull my shed stick down and I can go all the way through quickly on this side. So going left to right is really easy and quick for me. I just really need to get my good start of making sure I'm not pulling across. And that's really the basics. You just keep weaving this until you've got about this much left. When you have about the length of your needle, I would say. If you have about the length of your needle left, stop, because I'm going to show you how to tie on a new piece of yarn and to keep going. All right, good job everybody. Good luck.